This week, our special guest is releasing a book. He just finished his manuscript, and maybe you've heard it. We've talked about it here some on Excel TV. Our special guest this week is Soleil.
All right. Glad to be here. Thank y'all.
So Oz, we're used to your personality. We know your personality, but would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background to start us off?
Oh, man, that's always hard to say, where to start. Grew up in a small town north of Chicago, called North Chicago, Illinois, closer to Wisconsin than it is to Chicago. And wrestled through high school, through junior high school, little Navy tournaments, college, and yeah, joined the Navy in '85 after getting bad grades in college at Indiana State University. Spent the 6 years in the Navy, did navigation, a fast attack submarine, a fast frigate, got out of the Navy, finished my BA in philosophy, studied a lot of logic and decision theory. So that winds up seeing how Excel winds up making sense. Because I remember being in a Descartes course and getting up and walking out. I had enough of that stuff. I needed symbols and parentheses. That stuff made sense to me.
So you're a philosopher.
Yeah, so I studied philosophy. Then went to Harvard to study public policy. Shouldn't have done that. I wasn't a public policy kind of person. Did a lot of things here and there, and then fell into this Excel thing by accident. Had a director where I worked. He saw something really analytical about me, and then he started throwing stuff at me. And he realized that he was a people person. He needed a data person to back him up, because when he went to go in and talk about budgets and performance and everything, he needed numbers, which he wasn't good with. So I really thank him for showing up when he did, because I had a job that I was getting ready to get up and walk out of, like I did that Descartes class. So that wound up being a lot of Excel and a lot of jobs that have been around data and Excel. And of course, I'm leaving out a whole lot of things, but that's generally who I am.
So,
go ahead.
Tell us about Datascopic. Why the name? When did you start it? What compelled you to start blogging?
Datascopic. I started thinking data from the microscopic to the macroscopic to the kaleidoscopic. Yeah, because data touches everything in there. We're trying to measure electrons. Are you trying to measure a skyscraper, or how far the sun is? All of that. Ages, how big your nose is, how many times the average person sneezes in a year. All that's data.
So why'd you start blogging? I mean, what compelled you?
Okay, I felt like I needed a web presence. Okay, so here's what happened. In '08, 300 of us were laid off. Company left. I figured, what am I going to do now? All right, so then people have told me that this Excel thing is a skill. I was just a guy in a cubicle having fun until somebody said, this is a skill. And I had to train somebody, and she started crying. And then I realized, okay, this stuff is hard for some people. And it's not bad, but yeah, that was a weird moment. Anyway, so then I started freelancing. I needed a web presence, set up a website, didn't do anything with it for 2 years. What was I going to do? So then this whole blogging idea comes. Okay, so I'm looking at all these websites with all these Excel tips and things. Okay, so I'll put up some Excel tips, just crank some stuff out, just to keep the site, active, alive. And then I started going to this Wine and Webs that Orbit Media gives once a month here in Chicago, and they talk about blogging and the kind of things you can do with it. because I didn't see what could I do really more VLOOKUP tips, things that people have already done. So getting started blogging was really about keeping a website alive. Continuing to blog, that was more interesting because it started to show me what mattered to me, what I really knew, what mattered to the audience, and what I was willing to give to the audience. And what I saw after a bunch of blog posts was that really I was concerned about data literacy. Because back when I didn't know VLOOKUPs existed, didn't know pivot tables existed, I was manual, dragging, manually highlighting cells, or coloring cells, uncoloring them, didn't know pivot tables, anything. But what I did was always right. So I didn't really need to teach VLOOKUPs as much as I was concerned about when that lady started crying. It was because I was asking her, okay, why are we doing what we're doing? Well, because 5 steps from now, we need to be here, and we can't get there until we think about this 5 steps earlier. I was able to do that with no VLOOKUPs and no if statements. And so that's where my blog started talking more about things like, what do you interview for? Do you interview for Excel skills? And I wrote a blog post saying no, because if somebody can think data, you can teach them a VLOOKUP and a pivot table and VBA coding and data models and all of that. Don't interview for if they can do that stuff already, unless that's some temp job that they've got to jump in, do it, because they're not going to be in that job in a week or a month. But if it's a long-term job, make sure that they've got some fundamental logical thinking and understanding and developing a relationship with data so that you know when something seems off, so that you know where to ask the questions, where to run another report to get more information. That's what you need. And also, you can have somebody who does know all of that stuff. But if they aren't willing to dig and ask questions and probe and be difficult, then what good is that?
I agree with you, Oz, and I think to some extent, whenever you're interviewing for analytic people, or pretty much in any discipline, I guess. But I used to tell people you don't hear an analyst whenever you're interviewing them. You see them. You can tell by the way their face lights up, and just like whenever you first started talking about, oh, and then I walked out of this class and this lady was crying, and you could just see how your face lit up, and it's different. Yeah. You know, and I think the same thing. You know, whenever you're talking to analytical people, I would rather hire someone who doesn't necessarily have the skills, who doesn't know regression trees, who doesn't know some of the high-end sort of stuff that they might need for the job. But when you talk about it, they get excited, they get pumped, they get geeked up. You know, that's the people you got to get, man. You pay them whatever you need to pay them.
Man, yeah, because man, I tell you that, just realizing being an analyst and coming back with the information that people don't want, or we don't have enough of it, or certain requirements need to have kind of things, say, I can't get it, I'm not qualified to get that information, whatever. You got to be that dark shadow at somebody's doorstep and be okay with it. And when you love data like this and care about the quality of it, then yeah, you go tell somebody, okay, we can't get that, or what we got is a bigger mess than we thought, and we got more work to do, and sorry that you're not going to have it for your important meeting in an hour.
So you mentioned the class that you'd walked out of. I think you said CART. Did you mean classification and regression trees, CART?
No. I mean, Rene Descartes. Rene
Descartes. Gotcha. You said decision theory, and I'm like, okay, regression trees. Let's geek out for a minute, man. Let's talk about it. Let's get real.
decision theory and all that stuff to stochastic processes and picking the blue marble out of a bowl and what is the odds of getting it back again once you put it back, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Woo! Let's talk.
Yeah. Jordan, what do you got to say over there?
You know, I like that stuff. It's fun, not really geeking me out, but I do. You know, you always talk about like data cleaning and data literacy and data quality. What can you say on those things? Like, what are the problems that people often have? I think they think that, oh, we need a solution now, but then you look at their stuff and you're like, well, your data's not ready. I mean, is that right? Like, isn't that something that you really take a look at?
Yeah, that happens a lot. Somebody's ready to do something, pay people, deliver bad news, whatever they have to do, and they've done all these calculations and everything, and then I might just throw something in a pivot table, just see what's there, and all these duplicates show up. Missing data that's in critical fields, and say, no, we can't do anything with this yet. It's got to get cleaned up. That's always the first thing, and depending on what the stakes are, you know, and how big the data set is. But yeah, when you're talking about money, anything critical. I worked with a nonprofit once, and they have to be able to tell foundations what their effectiveness has been. Okay, so we want your $20,000, and you want us to tell you how effective we've been. Well, they've got spreadsheets everywhere, and they've swept them together, kinda, and then they're ready to start doing some analysis. No, because a lot of these other spreadsheets had duplicates in them, and you got to be able to find those to clean that out, because you don't want to tell some foundation some baloney about what you've been doing. They find out, it's bad.
Cool. So you think people are just kind of skipping steps? You know.
Well, I think it's the understanding data.
Mm-hmm.
That's the issue. Is where did this data come from? Has it gone through some filtering process before it got to me? Probably not. So I have to do some of that on my own before I start doing any calculations. And being able to tell people, I haven't checked the data quality, so I don't know when I can get you a report until I've checked this data quality. You know, that's not thought of so much. They do want to jump in and start doing all the fancy stuff and give me answers. I also noticed that when I have offered a validation course, that has been the one course that nobody has signed up for the 2 times that I've offered it. They say, this is the stuff that keeps you out of jail. It keeps the forensic accountants off your ass, because they have to show up and figure out, were you lazy? Did you just not care? Or were you trying to launder money? Data validation, some serious effort with that can help keep some of that off of you. But you got to be thinking data quality all the time. And as you're working with the data, how might I mess it up? This thing that I'm getting ready to do, I'd better be very careful to not create duplicates of my own, to not do some bad copy-paste job, all of those kind of things. And then using filtering, okay? So if you say you've got 5 salespeople, and then you just put up a filter and look at the filter, and it's giving you 9 options. Okay, something's wrong. Clean that up before you move forward. So data quality is a huge thing, and going with people and comparing lists. Understand you compare A to B and then B to A, and find all the weird stuff that comes out when you go both ways and understand what those mean so that you have a sense of how to track it down. You know, like if you have a members list and then people who replied, but then there's somebody who's replied that's not on the members list. Well, maybe that's somebody's spouse or friend or something. Find some way of tracing back who that was. But
and I have a theory on why nobody signed up to your validation course, and that is because people don't want to admit that they're wrong. So they don't. They want to get something because we all have this internal what's the word, confirmation bias. So we like models that spit out the stuff that we think is true, and we'll believe it even without validating it. That's your GIGO model, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Even when it gives you the right answer, it may be based on nonsense, so it's not a correct model. And this I've seen all the time. Arguably, the big Excel model that caused the J.P. Morgan whale incident. I can't quite remember exactly what happened, but it was giving them, the model result was giving them something that they actually liked because they thought it meant that they had something secret, that none of the other people measuring those collateralized debt obligations had. So that's my view on it. I feel like people don't want any of that stuff. They want, hey, give me a result. Ooh, I like that result. So that's it. I'm done.
And see, that's interesting, and you're accurate. People don't like to be wrong. And yeah, you can say, okay, I was fed crap data. I did a perfect job, but they are the ones that fed me the crap data. No, a good analyst does not go for that. And I tell you, there was one time where somebody almost got paid too much money, and I wrote a blog post about this. And I thought I was going to get fired because I was the one that did all the calculations. So I talked with my friend, Patrick Richards, and he met with me downtown. I'm shaking. This person almost got $5,000 too much. He says, did the person get the money? No. When they found it, what'd you say? I said, yeah, I made a mistake. Okay, so you owned it. All right. When you try to hide it, you don't own it, you don't admit it, that's when people go to jail. You don't go to jail for owning a mistake. So that was a key lesson in being a good analyst, was saying things get messed up. And he pointed out that it went from me to the controller. The controller found it. And between me, then there me, the controller, somebody else, and then payroll. So the system worked. Take that, so being wrong, hey, it happens.
Like I tell you, so first off, we got a comment here from John Peltier, which I think is pretty much on topic. He doesn't think that a whole course on validation is going to fly, that you need to include that as a chapter in some kind of larger class or course. And to that point, I got to tell you, my job was doing validation for a Boston University, for an entire summer, about 3 years ago at Boston University, where they're taking their ERP systems and they were upgrading them, and basically there is a huge need in those cases when you're doing industrial strength type technology transfers. And once you do the implementation, man, you got to make sure, man, do I have all of my sites that were in the old system are now in the new system? And like you said, you have the presence of mind not to just look at it in one direction, but to look at it in the other direction. And oh my God, are the addresses correct? Do I have northwest and southeast and everything exactly correct? Is everything just the way it's supposed to be from one system to the other? Is it absolutely identical? And if it's not identical, where are the gaps? And I got to tell you, I think although it might not be a class in and of itself, I think there's a huge need, particularly as you're doing technology moves, big technology moves. There's probably a decent sized play there, but it's probably a one-off just for those points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jordan, you had something?
Yeah, I do. So we know that you have a new book coming out soon. We heard you sent in your manuscript, and I think we heard it because you told everyone. So
Yeah.
tell us about that book. So tell us about it. What's going to be in it? Why
Okay.
should people buy it instead of mine? Which I think they probably should, but
All right.
give them the reason to do it.
Okay. Well, okay. So it's Guerrilla Data Analysis, and Bill Jelen, Mr. Excel, wrote the book originally in 2002. So I revised it for 2013. So it was pretty exciting, and I recognized early on that it would have to be a ground-up rebuild because, of course, the things that didn't exist in 2002, like slicers, pivot charts. So those are in the book. And then some of the examples, even though something may not have changed, the example that was given in 2002, like a comparison to Lotus 123 versus Excel. Okay, so I had to revise it, bring in some modern examples. Also, I brought in, say, nonprofit examples, web analytic examples, lots of different things, because I came to see the book as not so much somebody who wants to, I want to learn Excel from A to Z and get some big fat book, but somebody whose ass is in the fire. They've got to compare some lists. So there are examples on how to compare lists. Really, some sections are as short as a quarter page, others are over 20 pages, like filtering, because I do auto filter and advanced filtering. So that's going to be quite a sizable section. But then doing something like, I don't know, maybe the EO month function, that can be a short section, right? So a lot of short, practical, get you in, get you out, pull your ass out of the fire so you can go on back to what your real job is. So that's how I thought about it, and I wonder how Mr. Excel would think about it, but that's how I thought about it, because I'm getting ready to do some tutoring with an office manager who does payroll, and she's wearing a lot of hats, and her job title does not say data analyst, but there's a whole lot of data analysis in what she does. So I kept thinking about people like her. What does she need so that she can go back to being an office manager?
So are there any jokes in it? Any funny Oz humor?
Well, I have some fun with it. I have some fun. So no, I didn't want to make some dry book. No.
So one thing before we move over to the next section, because I think this kind of plays into our topic of the week, and your background, anybody's background to some extent, impacts how they do analysis and how they impact or how they address almost any problem. Can you talk? I hear a lot about dragon cookies, sriracha. I hear that a lot of times whenever you talk. It was dragon cookies. Is Datascopic the only business you've ever had, or have you had other things that you've done? What is a dragon cookie story? What is that?
Dragon cookies. That started with I like spicy food, and I found a sriracha peanut butter cookie recipe online, and all the sriracha did was add color to the cookie. There was no heat at all. I'm still looking for the person who put that recipe up. I'm looking for you, because that was not a funny joke to play. So I started messing with the recipe. You can't just dump more sriracha in to heat it up. And so over about 6 months, I experimented with this to get a sense of, can't just put hot sauce in. What if you just add more flour and more hot sauce? What do you get? So I've learned that the right pepper puree in the cookie recipe, that will bring the heat to make you feel good for a long time. But it took, I made burned cookies, fluffy cookies, soft cookies, way too hot cookies. And yes, 6 months, I got it perfect. And the idea behind the dragon cookie is this. You think milk and cookies. And milk unlocks the capsaicin from your tongue to ease the heat. So with the dragon cookie found that window where the three, the sweet, the milk, and the spice are perfect. So that's what's behind the dragon cookie. Too hot by itself, perfect with milk.
So was this a business of yours?
Yeah, well, it turned into one. Because I would just post online, and then people started saying, where can I get these? And they started sending me money, and I started making cookies, and it was pretty good. And I even got my sanitation licenses. Here's State of Illinois sanitation license, because I was going to go into a commercial kitchen and do it for real. But it got to a place to where I had so many orders about 3 Christmases ago that I had to stop it. Because baking and testing is one thing. When you get into packaging and printing labels, and my cookies didn't come, what happened to them, now I'm getting somebody's tracking number and, you know, sending them their tracking number and dealing with all of that stuff. It was too much for one person. And the barrier to entry in the food business is pretty high. You know, you need $1 million worth of insurance to go into a commercial kitchen. You're renting it by the hour in a commercial kitchen, and you can run into a situation where, okay, I blocked off 4 hours, and I wasted 2 hours because I burned cookies, but I've got to go in 2 hours. I can't just, because somebody else is coming in. So it's on hold. Every now and then I will bake a batch and maybe sell a batch, but generally, you know, it's on hold.
You know, I know we're way over time on this topic, but I can't help it. Your face lights up, and it reminds me of whenever you're talking about data. It's the same way, man. You're like, and the milk goes here,
Right.
this goes here. You just keep it up, man. I just love that. Can you talk a little bit about? You usually have the Sriracha poster back, and I heard you say one time something about a Sriracha movie that you were in. Were you in the movie?
Yeah, Sriracha Documentary by Griffin Hammond. Last spring, he told me several people told him to contact me in Chicago when they were talking about he was planning to do this Sriracha documentary. Rachel with Organicville Sky Valley Sriracha, she emailed me and told me, she told Griffin to get in touch with me, and so he did come and interviewed me on camera in the documentary in several places, and I've gotten emailed about, hey, dude, because I told a story about smuggling Sriracha into my friend's wedding reception.
Nice.
Because the thing is, I can't go anywhere. You know, friends want to go taste. We're going to go eat Italian. Yeah, well, where's the spicy Italian food? I don't know, but I've got Sriracha in my bag. So I can fix anything. There's one restaurant here in Chicago where the food can't be fixed by anything. And I won't mention that place, but yeah, Sriracha can fix anything. And there's Srirachas galore. There's more than just that Hoi Fong rooster stuff. There's lots of wonderful Srirachas out there. And I'll mention Dark Star. They use a balsamic vinegar in their Sriracha. You've got California Blazing Chili Farms. They do the scorpion pepper and the ghost pepper Srirachas. Sky Valley. They won our SmackDown from last summer, and they recently won another Sriracha challenge. Kicked Hoi Fong's ass. You know, but I really appreciate what David Tran has done with Sriracha, because people like me were running around loving spicy food but couldn't stand that vinegary Tabasco sauce flavor that's your traditional hot sauce. So we really appreciate Sriracha, but not with those science fiction ingredients in it. Sky Valley, good stuff. Uh,
So just showing you never know what you're going to find on Excel TV.
right.
So I'm going to find that documentary, and we're going to post that down below because I want to see that, man. That's going to be on.
Yes, you can see it on Vimeo for $5. And where it's relevant is there is a dashboard with data bars and slicers and a graph showing the results of the Sriracha Smackdown, showing that, okay, we sampled 9 Srirachas, Sky Valley 1, and what happens if you look only at the all-natural Srirachas and take out the ones with the science fiction ingredients in them, what was hottest, what had the weirdest flavor, whatever, who graded what, so that then you can even slice it by what the judges sampled, because I think I sampled 5 of the 9, so you can see how just my 5 were by the slicers in this dashboard.
Awesome. So thanks for that.